A major milestone for the Gordie Howe International Bridge could come this week. CTV's Robert Lothian joins me now with the absolute latest on this. Robert.
Yeah, Stephanie, the traffic will begin flowing across the Gordie Howe International Bridge on Monday, according to news outlets stateside. The Detroit News, citing sources familiar with the plans, reports invitations to a ribbon cutting went out today following talks between Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the White House. The news outlet says the opening will follow a ceremony planned for Friday. This could mean the end to an 8-year construction effort costing $6.4 billion, linking Michigan and Ontario.
Canada is opening a massive international crossing that many people followed for years, but few expected to reach this stage so soon. After construction challenges, political debates, and constant scrutiny, the project now stands complete. Behind the scenes, transportation officials and businesses are preparing for a major change along one of North America's busiest trade routes. In June 2026, 3 sources with knowledge of the plans told reporters that a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Gordie Howe International Bridge is set for Friday, June 12th. The bridge will open to traffic on Monday, June 15th. The invitations went out Monday after a conversation between Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, and Susie Wiles, who was chief of staff to President Donald Trump. After 8 years of construction, 4 months of political standoff, 1 presidential social media threat, and a bilateral trade dispute that turned a road opening into a geopolitical flashpoint, the Gordie Howe International Bridge is finally opening. The sequence of events that produced Monday's announcement is specific and documented. Trump threatened in February 2026 to block the bridge from opening until the United States was fully compensated, citing what he described as unfair Canadian trade practices. He demanded a renegotiation of the 2012 agreement between Canada and Michigan that had Canada financing the entire construction costs in exchange for joint ownership with Michigan and toll revenue participation once Canada's construction investment was recovered. Prime Minister Carney responded to the threat by pointing to the existing legal contract, noting the American steel and American workers involved in the project and allowing Michigan's own political and business community, which needed the bridge open, to absorb the political pressure. Carney subsequently spoke directly with Trump and stated he expected the situation to be resolved. The Detroit News reported that Matthew Moron, whose family owns the Ambassador Bridge, currently the only bridge that connects to Canada and Detroit, donated $1 million to President Trump's Political Action Committee days before Trump announced his opposition to opening the new bridge. That detail sits on the public record without resolution. The bridge, whose commercial monopoly, the Gordie Howe crossing, ends, the family that owns it, and the timing of a 7-figure political donation to the president, who then threatened to block the competing crossings opening, are documented facts that multiple outlets reported and that U.S. congressional Democrats formally requested investigation into. Whether the investigation produced findings has not been publicly disclosed. The bridge's physical specifications explain why the commercial community on both sides of the river treated the opening delay as an economic emergency rather than a political inconvenience. The Gordie Howe International Bridge is a 6-lane cable-stayed crossing spanning 1.5 miles across the Detroit River. It is the longest cable-stayed bridge in North America. It connects directly to Interstate 75 in Michigan and Highway 401 in Ontario, the highway systems that carry the commercial freight, driving one of the most important trade corridors in the world. The Windsor-Detroit corridor handles more than 30% of truck-hauled trade between the United States and Canada. The total annual value of goods moving through that corridor is approximately $126 billion. Every day, those goods move across an aging Ambassador Bridge that was not designed for current commercial volumes and whose private owner charges tolls of $20 to $28 per axle, approximately $100 to $140 per commercial truck. The Gordie Howe Bridge's commercial toll rate is approximately $12 per axle. Construction began in 2018 when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Michigan Governor Rick Snyder attended a groundbreaking ceremony in Windsor. The original projected opening was 2024. Delays related to the port of entry facilities on both sides of the river pushed the timeline to fall, 2025. Further delays in completing and handing over the U.S. Customs port of entry in southwest Detroit pushed it again to early 2026. S&P Global flagged those port of entry delays in a ratings report, noting that contractors had missed 2 separate handover deadlines. The bridge structure itself, the cable-stayed span crossing the river, was completed in June 2024 when the two halves of the bridge deck extending from the Windsor and Detroit sides were connected, marking the construction midpoint milestone. By June 2026, with construction and testing essentially complete, U.S. Customs and Border Protection staff were stationed, trained, and confirmed ready. DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen told the Senate Appropriations Committee, "We're prepared, we're staffed, ready to go." There's still negotiations between Canada and the United States that's not within DHS that has to be resolved. But we're as far as we can go without the sign-off from the bridge and the final agreement between the two countries. The Canada Border Services Agency had been operational on the Canadian side since fall 2025. The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority confirmed the project team was progressing toward a spring opening. Spring ends June 20th. The ribbon cutting is June 12th. Traffic opens June 15th. Tara Carson, the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority's Director of Communication, said, "The project team is progressing well toward a spring opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, which will be a vital economic link between the two countries. Additional details will be shared in the coming days." The political resolution that unblocked the opening emerged from the combination of three simultaneous pressures. Michigan Governor Whitmer's direct engagement with the White House, the conversation with Trump's chief of staff that preceded the invitation distribution, reflects Michigan's economic stake in the opening. Michigan's manufacturing sector, concentrated in the Detroit metropolitan area and the auto industry supply chain, depends on the Windsor-Detroit corridor's capacity. The Gordie Howe Bridge's lower commercial toll rate directly reduces input costs for Michigan manufacturers who import Canadian components. Every week of delay was a week of Ambassador Bridge toll premiums paid by Michigan businesses for goods they needed. The CUSMA review deadline of July 1st provided additional momentum. The CUSMA negotiation timeline, which Trade Minister LeBlanc has been advancing through formal meetings in Washington, creates an incentive for both sides to resolve the bridge dispute as a gesture of bilateral goodwill ahead of the more consequential trade framework discussions. A bridge opening ceremony attended by both American and Canadian officials in the week before the July 1st CUSMA deadline would provide the kind of visible positive signal that negotiators on both sides have an interest in demonstrating. Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, who signed the original 2012 agreement with Canada that made the project possible, is expected to attend the June 12th ribbon cutting alongside Governor Whitmer. The 2012 agreement Snyder signed gave Michigan joint ownership of a $4.7 billion structure without any upfront Michigan capital contribution, with toll revenue participation beginning after Canada recoups its construction investment. That agreement was held. The contract that Canada pointed to when Trump's demands arrived in February is the same contract whose architecture is being celebrated at the ribbon cutting on Friday. The bridge that was threatened, held in political limbo for 4 months, and used as a bargaining chip in a bilateral trade dispute, opens to commercial truck and passenger traffic on June 15th, named after one of the greatest hockey players in the history of the sport, built by Canadian capital.